What if the weight on your chest isn't life? It's your grip. We spend years calling it responsibility, ambition, or love. But beneath those names lies tension, the quiet war between how things are and how we insist they should be. Look at your own hands for a moment. Notice how they close without you even realizing. That's the story of the mind. Always grasping, always trying to control, always attempting to hold together a world that was never truly falling apart in the first place. It's not the world that exhausts us. It's the way we cling to it. We grip our jobs, our relationships, our identities, terrified that if we relax even slightly, everything will collapse. But has all that holding ever really brought peace? Or has it only brought more pressure disguised as purpose? The truth is, control feels safe because it gives us the illusion that we're steering life. But the more tightly we hold, the faster things seem to slip through our fingers. This isn't another lecture about letting go. This is a path, a gentle journey through 9 simple shifts that transform pressure into peace, one breath at a time. And by the final shift, I'll share a 60-second nightly practice that can dissolve the weight you carry before you sleep. So if you've been feeling tired, anxious, or endlessly caught in the cycle of trying to fix everything, stay with me. Because what's coming next might not just change your thoughts, it might change how you breathe. Before we begin, take a single deep breath. Inhale slowly and feel your chest rise. Exhale fully and imagine the grip softening just a little. Because maybe the first step toward peace isn't about fixing your life at all. Maybe it's about unclenching your soul. Lesson 1. The grip that creates the weight. Control feels safe. It gives us the illusion that we are steering life, that if we just hold on tight enough, nothing can slip away. Yet what most of us don't see is that the need for control is the very thing that exhausts us. Imagine a rope tied in a perfect knot. Each time you tug on it, the knot tightens. It doesn't free you, it traps you. The mind works the same way. Every time we pull harder, trying to fix, to plan, to guarantee, we create more tension inside ourselves. In Buddhism, this is called upadana, clinging, the fuel that keeps suffering burning. It's subtle. We cling not only to possessions or people, but to ideas, how things should be, how we must appear, what the future has to look like. And the tighter we grip, the less room life has to breathe. That's why you can have everything going your way and still feel a quiet panic underneath it all. It isn't failure. It's friction, born from the mind's refusal to loosen its hold. Think about the moments that drain you most. Are they really difficult, or are they simply moments you're trying to control? The conversation you keep rehearsing, the outcome you keep forcing, the plan you refuse to let bend. Each is another tug on that inner knot. Eventually, the strain becomes so constant, you mistake it for normal. Here's a small experiment. For just 30 seconds, pause what you're doing. Breathe in for a count of 4 and out for 6. As you exhale, silently say, I can act without gripping. Feel what happens in your shoulders, in your jaw, in the space behind your eyes. Even one mindful breath begins to loosen what hours of overthinking could not. When the knot loosens, attention returns. You start noticing simple things again, the sound of your breath, the warmth of light on your skin, the fact that in this very moment nothing is actually wrong. Control was never peace. Presence is. And the moment you stop wrestling with life, life stops wrestling back. So ask yourself today, where am I trying to force an outcome? What am I gripping that no longer needs my strength? Because peace doesn't come from holding everything together. It comes from realizing that you never had to. Lesson 2, caring without chains. We often mistake fear for love. It hides so well behind our best intentions that we don't notice how tightly we hold on in the name of caring. We say we're protecting, guiding, helping, but deep down, what we're really doing is gripping. Overcaring is fear in disguise, the fear of losing control, the fear of not being needed, the fear that if we stop managing everything, it might all fall apart. Imagine a small flame burning on a candle. You place a glass over it to protect it from the wind. For a moment, it seems safe, untouched, shielded. But slowly the flame dims, not because it lacked protection, but because it lacked air. That's what happens when our love becomes control. We smother the very thing we're trying to keep alive. True compassion doesn't need to cage or correct anyone. In Buddhism, it's called metta, loving kindness, not fixing, not managing, not forcing, just presence. Metta means you sit beside another soul without trying to rewrite their story. You allow their pain to exist without making it your burden to erase it. And you trust that growth, theirs and yours, happens best in open air, not under glass. So the next time you find yourself trying to help someone, pause and ask, am I offering love or am I offering control? Real love gives space. It breathes. It doesn't need to monitor or fix or constantly check if it's being returned. When you love freely, you realize that care is not about managing people's emotions. It's about being with them in theirs. Maybe you've spent years being the rescuer, the one who always says yes, even when your body says no. Maybe you've mistaken exhaustion for devotion, but the truth is, you can't pour peace into others while draining your own. You can't save someone from their lesson without stealing the strength they were meant to gain. Try this small practice today. In one conversation, resist the urge to fix. Just listen, fully, for 90 seconds. Don't interrupt. Don't plan your response. Simply be there. Feel what happens when you stop reaching for the steering wheel and instead allow the moment to unfold on its own. That stillness you feel, that calm you taste in silence, that's what real compassion sounds like. It's not heavy, it's light, it gives, but it doesn't grasp. Because love that clings becomes a cage, but love that breathes becomes peace. And with space in the heart, the mind can finally quiet. Lesson 3, when thinking becomes weather. The mind loves to move. It leaps from one thought to another, endlessly circling what was said, what might happen, what could go wrong. We call it overthinking, but really, it's fear wearing the mask of effort. We believe that if we keep spinning the same thoughts long enough, we'll finally find peace. But peace doesn't come from stirring, it comes from settling. Picture a jar filled with clear water. Now imagine dropping a handful of mud into it and shaking it again and again, desperate for it to clear faster. The more you shake, the cloudier it becomes. That's how we treat the mind. We replay, analyze, compare, predict, and then wonder why clarity never comes. But if you set the jar down, if you simply stop shaking it, the mud begins to fall. The water clears on its own. In Buddhism, this is samatha, calm abiding, the art of stilling the restless monkey mind. You don't silence it by force, you calm it by attention. The monkey stops jumping, not because it's trapped, but because it feels safe. When you allow your thoughts to settle instead of wrestling with them, awareness deepens, and from that stillness, wisdom rises naturally. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly stopped thinking? Not zoning out, not scrolling, but genuinely resting in awareness, doing nothing. The modern world treats stillness like laziness, but stillness is not emptiness. It is the space where everything essential returns. Try this small practice. I call it the 60-second do nothing. Sit wherever you are. Close your eyes. Notice 3 sounds around you: distant, near, faint. Feel 2 points where your body touches the ground. Then watch 1 breath, in and out. That's it. 60 seconds of awareness. You'll notice something subtle. The noise inside begins to fade. Not because you forced it to, but because you stopped feeding it attention. Overthinking is the habit of fighting what is. Stillness is the courage to let what is simply be. When the water of the mind clears, truth stops hiding. What felt complicated suddenly becomes simple. The path appears on its own, and you realize it was always there, beneath the ripples. Once the water clears, what's true becomes simple. Lesson 4. Detachment equals full care, 0 chains. Most people misunderstand detachment. They hear the word and picture indifference, a cold distance from life, as if caring less were the goal. But real detachment isn't about caring less. It's about caring freely, without fear, without chains, without tying your worth to what happens next. Think of a kite in the sky. It doesn't soar because the string is pulled tight. It rises because there's room for wind, room for movement, room for balance. When we grip the string too hard, trying to control every gust, every direction, the kite jerks, spins, and falls. But when the hand relaxes, when we trust the air itself, it climbs higher with ease. That is detachment, full care, 0 control. The Buddha taught that anicca, impermanence, is the nature of all things. Everything changes, everything shifts. To resist that is to suffer. Detachment doesn't mean you stop acting or stop loving. It means you act and love without trying to possess the outcome. You show up sincerely, then release what follows. This is what Buddhism calls right effort, doing what is wholesome, without the anxiety of what if. We've been trained to measure our worth by results, the promotion we get, the love that stays, the applause that comes. So we clutch at outcomes like lifelines. But have you noticed that the harder you cling to control, the more peace slips away? You can pour your heart into a dream, but the moment you start needing it to succeed to feel okay, you've turned it into a prison. Detachment is freedom from that prison. It's the understanding that you can care deeply and remain at peace when life shifts. It's saying, I'll give my best, but I no longer demand that life obey my plans. When you live like this, your energy changes. You stop chasing, you start aligning. You move from fear to flow. Look at your own life. How often have you confused love with possession or ambition with tension? We hold people too tightly, afraid they'll leave. We hold goals too tightly, afraid we'll fail. But what if holding lightly allowed both to thrive? When you loosen your grip, you create the space where peace and authenticity can breathe. There's a teaching in Zen that says, when you let go of what you are, you become what you might be. It's not a loss, it's a return. When you stop needing things to go your way, you discover who you were before the noise of expectation began. The most peaceful people you'll ever meet are not detached from life. They're deeply immersed in it, but with open hands. They've learned that peace doesn't depend on what they have. It lives in how they hold it. So here's a small but powerful practice. Set one clear intention today. Something simple and sincere. Maybe it's, I'll speak kindly, or I'll finish my work with presence, or I'll love without fear. Then say quietly, I'll show up fully. The outcome belongs to causes and conditions. This phrase carries the essence of Buddhist wisdom. You act with integrity, and you trust the unfolding. Notice how much lighter you feel when you release the obsession with results. Notice how much more creative, calm, and centered you become when you stop dragging the future into every action. That's because life flows better when you stop demanding it to flow your way. Remember, detachment isn't a wall. It's a window. It lets air into your effort, space into your love, and clarity into your choices. It allows you to care deeply without collapsing when things change. Because they will change. That's the one constant we can depend on. So the next time you catch yourself tightening around an outcome, pause. Take a breath. Feel the invisible string between your heart and the world. Then ease your grip, just a little. Let the wind carry what's meant to rise. When outcomes unhook, worth unhooks. And in that soft release, life begins to lift you higher than you ever could have climbed by force. Lesson 5. Approval is a moving weather report. Most of us spend our lives chasing the forecast of other people's approval. One compliment, and the sun comes out. One criticism, and clouds roll in. But if your peace depends on the weather outside, you'll spend your whole life packing and unpacking your heart for storms that were never yours to control. Validation feels comforting because it mirrors something ancient in us, the need to belong, to be seen, to be told we're enough. Yet approval is a moving weather report. It shifts with moods, opinions, and passing trends. One moment, everyone claps. The next, they look away. You cannot build a steady life on ground that unsteady. Picture a mountain standing beneath a restless sky. Clouds race across it, some bright, some dark, some heavy with rain, but the mountain never bows, never rises with praise, never sinks with criticism. It just is. That stillness is integrity. Sila in Buddhist teaching, the ground from which true confidence grows. Integrity means your sense of worth doesn't sway with public weather. It roots itself in alignment with your own values. When you live from alignment, decisions become simpler. You stop asking, will they like me? And start asking, is this true for me? Suddenly, your energy feels cleaner, your speech gentler, your presence steadier. You realize that being authentic might not always bring applause, but it always brings peace. And peace lasts longer than approval ever could. There's nothing wrong with enjoying praise. Warmth is part of being human. But the moment you depend on it, you trade your freedom for permission slips. You begin performing instead of living. You start editing yourself to stay liked. That's the subtle slavery of validation. Sweet at first, then suffocating. Buddhism teaches that clinging in any form breeds suffering. Even the craving to be admired can chain you as tightly as fear. So here's a practice to steady your inner weather. Each night before sleep, reflect for a minute and write down 3 truths you honored today. Not achievements, but alignments. Maybe you spoke honestly when silence would have been easier. Maybe you rested instead of overpromising. Maybe you forgave yourself for something small. These are quiet victories. They remind the mind that integrity is more reliable than applause. As days pass, you'll notice a shift. The heart stops chasing updates from the outside world. You'll begin to feel anchored, like the mountain, rooted, unmoved, yet alive to every breeze. The comments, the metrics, the noise, they'll still appear like weather, but they'll no longer decide your mood. You'll glance at them, smile, and return to your own sky. Because validation is temporary weather, but alignment is climate. When you live in alignment, storms may come, but they no longer define the day. You know who you are beneath the clouds. From that stillness grows something deeper, anchoring. Lesson 6. The art of inner anchoring. Peace isn't when the world finally calms down. Peace begins when you do, when you root yourself while everything else moves. Life will always sway between gain and loss, noise and silence, ease and uncertainty. You can't control the tide, but you can learn to be the lighthouse, steady, bright, unmoved, even as waves crash against the rocks below. Picture it, a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the water rises, yet the structure stands firm. It doesn't fight the waves. It doesn't wish the sky to clear. Its only task is to keep its inner light turning. That's what anchoring feels like. Not avoidance, not denial, but quiet confidence that no matter what chaos comes, you remain. In Buddhism, this is called upekkha, Equanimity. It's not cold detachment. It's warm stability, the art of steady interest without aversion or grasping. It means you can care deeply about the outcome without collapsing when it changes. You can hold joy without clinging to it and hold pain without letting it drown you. Equanimity is the middle path between reacting and retreating. It's the strength to stay open even when the world shakes. Think about how often we lose our balance. A single message, a missed opportunity, a harsh comment, and suddenly, peace disappears. We let emotions pull us like tides, forgetting that feelings are weather, not identity. You can feel anger without becoming anger. You can feel sadness without being sadness. Anchoring is remembering that distinction. Here's a simple practice for those moments when life begins to pull you under, what I call the trigger protocol. First, pause. Don't rush to respond or fix. Just stop. Second, name the feeling. Not the story behind it, just the feeling itself. Anger, fear, disappointment. Naming breaks the trance of reaction. Third, place your hand on your chest and breathe slowly. Feel the rhythm beneath your palm. Finally, whisper softly. This can move through. It sounds simple, but this single ritual rewires how your body meets emotion. It reminds you that storms are meant to pass, not to define you. Anchoring doesn't mean life stops testing you. It means your peace stops depending on the test. The waves may still rise, bills, arguments, disappointments, but your awareness learns to stand where it always was, in the center, watching, not drowning. Try imagining this throughout your day. You are the lighthouse. Your awareness the beam of light. Let it sweep calmly across whatever appears. Joy, stress, silence, confusion. The waves may roar, but the light continues to turn, steady and patient. When you live anchored like this, something profound happens. You no longer chase calm. Calm finds you. You stop bargaining with life for safety and start trusting that safety was always within you. Anchored, you can watch thoughts without becoming them. You can feel emotions without drowning in them. And slowly, you realize the sea has never been your enemy. It was only your teacher, showing you where to stand. Lesson 7. You are the sky, not the passing clouds. There is a moment, if you listen closely, when you can feel the distance between who you are and what you think. It happens in the quiet spaces, when the noise of the mind pauses for a breath, and you suddenly realize there is something in you that notices the thoughts, but isn't made of them. That awareness is who you truly are. Thoughts are just weather. You are the sky. Imagine watching a time-lapse of the heavens. Clouds roll through, some soft and white, others dark and heavy. But the sky itself never flinches. It doesn't argue with the thunder or cling to the sunlight. It simply allows. This is the essence of Buddhist insight meditation, vipassana. Seeing each phenomenon arise and vanish without identifying with it. The clouds can't stain the sky, no matter how fierce the storm. Likewise, no thought, no memory, fear, or judgment can touch the vast awareness that witnesses it. Most of us live trapped in the clouds. A single idea, I failed, they don't care, I'm not enough, passes through, and suddenly our whole world darkens. But thoughts are not facts. They are momentary formations, shaped by habit, emotion, and memory. The more you chase them, the denser the storm becomes. The more you let them float by, the sooner the light returns. Try to recall the last time one small thought ruined your day. Maybe a stray comment or a quiet worry spiraled into hours of restlessness. Ask yourself now, did the situation itself create suffering, or did the story you built around it? Most of our pain doesn't come from reality. It comes from believing everything the mind says about it. Here's a gentle practice to help you remember your true position in the sky. When the mind starts racing, label what you notice, softly, without judgment. Thinking, planning, judging, remembering. Then take one conscious breath and return to the body. This labeling isn't to control the thought. It's to remind yourself that you are not the thought. You are the one observing it pass. At first, it might feel mechanical, but with repetition, something shifts. A space opens between stimulus and response, between thought and identity. That space is freedom. In that space, peace waits patiently for your attention. Buddhist teachers call this the art of seeing clearly, recognizing that the mind's weather changes endlessly, but awareness remains untouched. And as you rest more often in that awareness, something miraculous happens. Surrender stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like relief. You no longer need every cloud to move your way. You simply watch, knowing the sky was never in danger. So tonight, when your thoughts begin to swirl, don't wrestle them. Step back into the vastness behind them. Whisper inwardly, "These too are passing." Feel how the sky inside you widens again, because peace isn't found in changing the weather, it's found in remembering that the weather was never you. Lesson 8. Surrender as intelligent trust. Surrender is one of the most misunderstood words in the human language. Many people hear it and think of giving up, of weakness, passivity, or defeat. But true surrender is the opposite. It is not quitting the game of life. It's quitting the argument with reality. It's what happens when you finally stop rowing against the current and allow the river to carry you where it was already going. Imagine yourself in a small boat, rowing furiously against the flow. You're exhausted, your arms ache, and the harder you row, the less ground you seem to gain. That's what resistance feels like, the desperate attempt to control what was never in your hands. But the moment you lift the oars, something incredible happens. The current begins to move you. The water that once felt like your enemy becomes your ally. The same force that seemed to fight you begins to carry you. That's the secret of surrender. It's not the end of effort, it's the beginning of alignment. In Buddhism, this is called wise acceptance, the practice of turning toward what is, instead of adding layers of mental struggle on top of it. Pain is inevitable. Resistance is optional. The Buddha taught that our second arrow of suffering, the mental argument, the refusal to accept, is what truly drains us. The first arrow may hurt, but the second arrow is self-inflicted. When we stop shooting that second arrow, energy returns, peace returns. Look at your own life. How much time have you spent fighting what already happened? How often have you replayed conversations that can't be rewritten, or tried to force situations that no longer fit? Every time we resist the present, we disconnect from it. And when we disconnect from it, we lose access to clarity. You can't see the truth of a moment you're still trying to reject. Surrender, then, is not about approval. It's about awareness. It doesn't mean you love every twist of fate. It means you stop demanding that life match your map. It's the realization that your energy is better used to respond wisely to reality than to argue endlessly with it. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" the tone of your entire inner world shifts. Here's a simple practice for moments of difficulty. When life feels heavy or confusing, ask yourself 2 questions. What's undeniably true right now? And what's the kindest next step? The first question grounds you in reality. It cuts through stories and speculation. The second question brings compassion back into motion. Together, they transform resistance into response. For example, maybe the undeniable truth is, this relationship has changed. The kindest next step might be to allow space instead of forcing closeness. Or perhaps the truth is, I made a mistake. The kindest step is to make amends, not to punish yourself. Wise acceptance isn't passive, it's the most intelligent form of action, because it starts from truth, not illusion. When you practice surrender, you notice something profound. Life keeps moving whether you fight it or not. But when you stop fighting, you can finally move with it. The energy that once went into resistance becomes clarity, creativity, and calm. You stop being dragged through your days and start flowing through them. So, the next time you feel yourself tightening against life, pause, breathe, whisper softly, "What's true right now?" Then ask, "What's the kindest step I can take?" That is surrender in motion, not the end of effort, but the birth of ease. Trusting what is opens the only place peace exists, the present. Lesson 9. Let the moment lead. We spend most of our lives living ahead of ourselves, rehearsing what's next, fixing what's gone, managing what hasn't even happened yet. The mind loves to live in tomorrow because tomorrow feels safer to control. But the irony is, the more you manage the future, the more disconnected you become from the only place life actually exists, now. When you stop managing tomorrow and start responding to this very moment, life becomes lighter, clearer, and surprisingly workable. You stop forcing and start flowing. It's like a river meeting a rock. It doesn't fight the obstacle. It simply curves, splits, and finds its way back together downstream. The river never loses itself. It simply adjusts, trusting the terrain. But most of us resist that flow. We wake up already sprinting mentally, planning conversations that haven't happened, worrying about problems that don't yet exist. We call it being responsible, but what we're really doing is rehearsing fear. We drain our energy in imaginary battles, while the present moment, the only one we can actually live, passes by unnoticed. Buddhism calls this state of presence right mindfulness. It's not just awareness, it's the art of placing attention exactly where life is happening. Not in the next hour, not in yesterday's story, but in the living pulse of now. When awareness is here, peace is here. When attention drifts, suffering begins. To live mindfully is not to withdraw from life, but to meet it directly. It's standing in the middle of your day and asking, what is life asking of me right now? Sometimes the answer is action, to speak, to create, to move forward. Other times the answer is stillness, to wait, to breathe, to listen. Mindfulness is knowing the difference. There's a quiet strength that comes when you stop demanding that every moment prove itself valuable. Some moments exist only to teach patience, some only to teach rest. But all moments, if entered fully, contain wisdom. The problem is that our minds keep trading the real for the ideal. We imagine how things should be, then judge how things are. The result is friction, an invisible fight that steals our calm. Try noticing how your mind behaves in ordinary situations. When you're walking, are you actually walking, or are you somewhere else? In a future conversation, an unfinished task, a self-critical thought. When you eat, do you taste the food, or are you already checking the next thing on your list? This is how we miss our lives. Not because they're small, but because we're rarely present enough to inhabit them. Here's a simple practice to help anchor yourself whenever life starts to spin. Stop for just a moment. Place both feet firmly on the floor. Feel their weight pressing into the earth. Whisper inwardly, "I am here." Then ask gently, "What is this moment asking of me?" Don't rush for an answer. Sometimes the answer will be to act. Other times, to wait. Sometimes it will simply say, "Be still." The power of this question lies in its honesty. It brings you back from stories into reality. It reminds you that life doesn't need to be micromanaged. It needs to be met. And when you meet it fully, something magical happens. What once felt chaotic begins to organize itself. You stop controlling outcomes and start cooperating with them. You begin to see that the universe has a rhythm, and peace comes when you learn to move in time with it. Think about nature. The seasons never rush. The tree doesn't chase the next bloom. It grows one ring at a time. The tide doesn't demand to stay high. It withdraws and returns in its own cycle. Life is already in harmony. It's only the human mind that insists on speeding up the melody. Living from the present moment doesn't mean abandoning your plans. It means allowing your plans to breathe. When something doesn't go the way you expected, instead of saying, "This shouldn't happen," ask, "What is this moment teaching me that success couldn't?" Often, the detours carry the very insight you were too focused to see. The moment you stop trying to manage everything, you discover that life has been quietly managing itself all along. The heart beats, the breath moves, the world turns, the sun rises again without your permission. When you start trusting this rhythm, anxiety softens. You stop dragging the future into the present. You realize you were never meant to push the river, only to let it guide you home. So when confusion arises, return to the body. Feel your feet, take a breath, and remember, this moment is not an interruption. It is your life. Every time you return to it, you reclaim your power. Because when you live from now, things don't fall apart, they fall into place. Take a slow breath. You've walked through every layer of letting go, from the mind's grip on control, to the heart's need for approval, to the quiet power of surrender. Now, all of it returns here, to this one truth. You never had to chase peace. You only had to stop running from the moment you're already in. When you loosen your grip on how life should be, you begin to see the beauty of how it is. The plans that fell apart weren't punishments, they were realignments. The silence that once scared you becomes sanctuary. The stillness you used to avoid becomes strength. Every time you let go, life quietly steps forward to meet you. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing beside a river at dusk. The water moves effortlessly, weaving around stones, carrying reflections of the fading sky. You reach down and touch it, and realize you never had to push it forward. It was already flowing. So is your life. The current knows where to go. Your task was never to control it, but to travel within it. You've learned that caring doesn't mean controlling. That detachment isn't cold, it's compassionate. That your thoughts are not enemies to destroy, but weather to observe. You've seen that surrender is not weakness, but intelligent trust. And that peace isn't the world calming down. It's you, anchoring while it moves. So as you sit here, take one final breath with awareness. Inhale fully. Exhale softly. Feel your shoulders drop. Whisper to yourself, I am here. I am enough. I am safe in the flow. If you remember nothing else from this journey, remember this. When you stop forcing, life starts flowing. When you stop chasing, what's meant for you begins to arrive naturally. Peace is never hiding. It's simply waiting beneath the noise. Before we close, I invite you to carry one reflection with you. What can I allow today, instead of control? Let that question move with you through the next sunrise, the next conversation, the next decision. And if this message brought you even a little calm, share it with someone who's still trying to hold everything together. Sometimes, one gentle reminder is enough to loosen 1,000 invisible knots. May your patience be steady, your trust deep, and your heart open like the sky. Because when you live from this stillness, you'll find that nothing was ever missing, only waiting to be seen.